How's it going, everyone? Andy here, back at you with another 4K review. Today I wanted to review something that I've actually been looking forward to for a very long time now. It's Bloodstained Curse of the New Moon. Now, in case you don't know what this game is, I'll just give you a quick little rundown. Koji Igarashi, Inga for short, has actually been doing a Kickstarter about 2 years ago now, I'll say, where he wanted to do a spiritual successor to Castlevania. Ever since he left Konami, he wanted to continue doing Castlevania, because I'm sure you guys know that during the time when he was at Konami, Castlevania was in that Lords of Shadow phase where it was handed over to Mercury's team, who is now obviously doing Metroid. But before, they were working on Castlevania, and as far as I know, Inga wasn't that involved in those games. But once Lords of Shadow wrapped up, Inga, I think, really wanted to continue Castlevania, and I think at that point Konami was just like, you know what, they didn't want to do anything with the series at that point. Of course, Konami has made some really weird decisions as of recently anyway, so I don't want to delve in too deep into that. But regarding Inga wanted to make a new Castlevania game, so obviously he left Konami and wanted to basically do a new spiritual successor. He did a Kickstarter campaign. As far as I know, the campaign was very successful. Now, one of the actual goals here was to get an 8-bit game done, and as far as I know, that goal was actually met. So he teamed up with NT Create, the creators of the Mega Man Zero series, as well as Mighty Gunvolt and the actual Gunvolt games itself. So they worked on this along with Inga. Now, the trailer came out and I was super hyped for it. I was like, can't wait to play it. It literally felt like a spiritual successor to Castlevania 3 with the whole swapping characters out. So I just wanted to take a few minutes just to tell you guys why this game was so awesome and why you guys should buy it. And in case you guys wanted just to know about the price, it's $8.99 on the European eShop, and I believe it's $9.99 for for you folks over at the States. But if you play Castlevania 3 before, this game will feel very similar to you right from the start. Simply put, much like Castlevania 3, there are 4 characters that you could choose from. You start off with one, and as you progress through the level, you actually unlock the other characters. Now, the biggest takeaway from all of this is that, and the biggest difference as well, this one actually allows you to use all 4 characters, switch them in and out simultaneously. While in Castlevania 3, if you remember, each time when you come across an ally, you're going to actually have to swap it with your existing one, and Trevor can never leave the group, so it's always Trevor with one of the following characters. And in terms of the characters, you might already know, each character is pretty much just another addition of one of the Castlevania 3 characters. Take for example, Zangetsu is the Grant of this group. His range is quite short. He doesn't have a very long range in terms of his attacks, but he has the longest health out of all the 4 characters. And then you have a Miriam, which is basically the Trevor of this group. She uses a whip, longest range, could jump the highest, as well as she could slide under because throughout certain levels you can actually use the ability to slide, and then you'll uncover some hidden secrets, that kind of stuff, which makes it worthwhile once you've beaten a level. Because on certain level, when you progress through the first time, you actually don't have the right characters with the right abilities to actually explore that particular section of the level, which is very good. It increased replayabilities. Alfred, simply put, the cipher of this version, has all the elemental attacks and has the weakest health out of all, but the best thing about it is that some of some of his actual abilities are very useful. He can summon a ring of fire around him, creating a protective shield. He has this projectile where he just shoots lightning, and the lightning actually follows where the enemy is, so it's like a homing attack kind of stuff. Lastly, and this is probably the one that is probably the most literally exactly the same character except with a different name. G-Bell here is exactly the same as Alucard. Same thing, even his sprite looks very similar to the original sprite from Castlevania 3 of how Alucard looks in that game. Again, he has kind of like a Dracula cape and everything like that. He has long hair, and similar to Alucard as well, he could shoot. In Castlevania 3, I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe his balls of destruction that he uses in Castlevania 3, G-Bell have something similar as well, except he just kind of summons bats, but he summons it in kind of like a diagonal right, so it's usually a diagonal right kind of attack wave, so it hits upwards. That's very similar. And the other thing that makes him the most similar compared to Alcott, it's the fact that he actually transforms into a bat, and he could like, but the difference here is he could actually still attack, because I don't remember that, I don't think Alcott could actually attack while he was in his bat form, but in this one he can, and then obviously he could turn back whenever you want. Now, aside from being able to switch simultaneously between 4 characters, the other benefit is that you can actually activate one character's special ability and then quickly switch to the next character, and it will still has that effect. Say for example, if you see in the trailer as well, yeah, they've shown that it's where Alfred actually uses a fire ring ability around him, and then you could quickly switch over to Zangetsu or Jiba or whatsoever, and then the power would still remain there, so you can actually still will have that fire ring around you, and you could still use a different character, and that the same thing applies to pretty much everyone. But obviously, if that character doesn't actually use a weapon that has a lingering effect, yeah, which in case of like, you know, Alfred's one, you won't really be able to mix and match them. Like, you know, it's not like a mechanic that you can mix and match. It's just like if it's an effect that lasts for a while, then it could get carried over to the next character. Now, in terms of the story-wise, the story is very, very basic. It's nothing, as far as I know, yeah, it's really nothing like, you know, it's Castlevania basically. It's just about a bunch of characters going up against, like, you know, demons and that kind of stuff. In this case though, they didn't really establish who the bad guy is, like, you know, or at least I haven't reached that point yet where I've actually finished the game yet. I'm about halfway through. Now, going down to the gameplay, if you love Castlevania 1, 2, 3, and to even a certain extent 4 as well, or some of the later ones that came before Symphony of the Night, they're very, very similar. They control mostly the same. But what I like about Curse of the Moon that they did really good compared to, like, you know, some of the other indie games that I've played, yeah, is that they are not trying to create like the same exact experience, like, you know, oh, it's all the same, like, you know, has the same control, same everything. The control feels same, but they're just kind of like, you know, less stiff, because one of the biggest problem with the old Castlevania games is that when you move the Belmonts, regardless which one we're talking about, yeah, as soon as you move and when you jump, it could be quite stiff, and sometimes like you have no control when you're jumping, that kind of stuff. In this game, yeah, I can't help but to felt like NT Create, it's like he has taken away everything that the old games that people probably wouldn't like returning again, but just take all the, like, you know, the look, the, like, you know, the basic control of it, but none of the stiffness, which is what I actually really like about this game. It's like, it's retro, but it feels modern at the same time. It's almost just kind of felt like they just took all the good things from the old Castlevania games and all the stuff that people probably aren't too fond of, like, you know, didn't make a return here. Although, with that being said, yeah, some of the minor issue that I did have, yeah, it's like it happens to be one of those old traits from the old Castlevania games. For example, knockbacks, because in this game there will be a lot of times where you actually have to jump from platform to platform, and while the jumping is perfectly fine, but sometimes they will put these enemies, like, you know, that you're on a platform and then you have an enemy flying towards you and you just have to jump, and if you don't jump, obviously it's going to hit you, and as soon as you get hit, you get knocked back. So that returned. Now the music, it's classic Castlevania kind of music. It's like every single one of these tunes, yeah, it easily felt like they could belong to an old school Castlevania game. Not really much to talk about here, like, you know, there isn't really any voice acting. It's like, yeah, sure, when your character get hit, like, you know, you'll see them like just go ugh a little bit, but other than that, you're not really gonna, there's not really much to talk about as far as voice acting goes. There's literally nothing, because remember, this is like an old NES game, but the music itself is very, very cool. And of course, like, you know, then there's the bosses as well. Now the bosses itself, they're actually pretty good and inventive. Like, you know, all of them are gigantic, not like the old Castlevania boss here where, like, you know, it's just you and an enemy that is roughly around your size. Like, if you look at the first Castlevania, like Medusa, the first bat boss, or like, you know, the mummies, they're all around your size. Here, all the bosses are really gigantic. For example, your very first boss you actually encounter, it's basically a demonic steam engine, pretty much, with a face as well. They're all cool, they're big, they're massive, but they're not that difficult. Once you, I'm sure, like, for most people, as soon as you lose to them the first time, you've pretty much will be able to narrow down the attack pattern and everything like that. But they're all big, they're all, like, you know, they look pretty cool and everything. Just a little bit on the easy side, because I played on veteran, and even then, yeah, I didn't really feel like I'm dying that often. But then again, it's just me though, like, you know, I've played a lot of these Castlevania games, maybe I'm just so used to it. So the bottom line is, can I recommend this game to you? Now, I'll just say this: if you like old school Castlevania games, or you're just a fan of Castlevania in general, and you were so disappointed the fact that Konami has practically abandoned the series and you want your Castlevania fix, there's no better game than this. Like, it's excellent. I really like it. The music is cool, the graphic style and everything, it's very on point. And yeah, if you're a fan of Castlevania, I don't see any reason why this game would disappoint you. I personally am really enjoying it. I'm gonna definitely do multiple playthroughs, like there are multiple pathways. It is a little bit on the short side, just like old school Castlevania games, but for $8.99, I definitely say the price is worth it. It's like, it's cheaper than most of the indie games on the eShop at the moment, both portable mode and and docked as well. They both perform well, they both look great. So yeah, personally, my rating is that I loved it. I think it's an amazing tribute to Castlevania, and it actually makes me even more hyped now to see what Ritual of the Night is actually going to be like. Everything, if it's going to be anything like this, or if it's going to like just be a bigger, prettier, like more content to it. I'm pretty sure I love Ritual of the Night as well. But anyway, guys, I'd like to hear what you think. Did you buy it? And if you did, what did you think about it? For those who haven't bought it yet, that's still on the fence, I hope this review helped you out in some way. Like, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. This is Andy from 4K Downtime signing off. Have a good one, guys. You take care.